Support for Radio Friends comes from La Brunerie Financial, where they work to ensure a lifetime of financial security for people from all walks of life, from investment services to retirement plans. If you're looking for a trustworthy company that has the experience and knowledge to put your interests first, contact La Brunerie Financial, a community-based investment counseling firm since 1966. Learn more at labrunerie.com or by calling 573-449-5313. Good morning and welcome to Radio Friends on Monday, December the 25th. It's Christmas Day. Merry Christmas to you. You know, Friday we had Kathy and Dave, and today we got Larry Brown. Merry Christmas, Larry.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Christmas morning.
Singer, songwriter, storyteller, and today you have a brand new story, right?
It is my tradition for several years to compose a new story for Christmas, and so here's this year's story.
Does it have a name?
Thump.
Thump?
Thump.
Okay, so here is Larry Brown with a brand new 2017 Christmas story called Thump.
It was some party for these 6 women, and probably a little too much drinking and a little bit too loud, but it was a special party. For these 6 women, it was a tradition. End of the year at Christmas times, they would party. Well, they'd worked hard this year. It was a particularly stressful year, so they had the right to enjoy themselves, and particularly special because it was at Gloria's house this year. And Gloria had a little bigger house than the rest of them and, well, a little more money perhaps to provide for the party, and so they had a wonderful meal. She'd even called in a special person to help with the meal, a maid to do the work with them. And, well, the meal had been glorious, and since it was Gloria's house, it was a glorious Gloria event. And the women were enjoying it now and having their drinks. But as time went on, June said, oh, I've got to get home. Matt's going to be expecting his supper, and I need to get out of here. So she was the first to leave. Shortly after Gloria had dismissed the maid, well, as June was driving down the road, there was a bit of a stretch through a wooded area, and it was dark. And as she was driving along, she felt a thump up against the side of the car, and she stepped on the brakes. She looked in the rearview mirror. In fact, she stopped and backed up a little bit, and she saw nothing. Thought, well, some critter had come out of the woods evidently and bumped up against the car, and she went on home. Well, when she got home, she was there getting supper ready for Matt and was a little bit nervous about bringing up the incident on the road to him. She thought, well, next morning she'd check and see how much damage had been done to the car. Well, next morning, as they were getting around, Matt was paying attention to the news, and there was a report that said a hit-and-run accident had occurred on the road. And when Matt was paying attention to the news, he said, isn't that the road that you take from Gloria's to our house? And June realized it was. And in that moment, she panicked, but she didn't know what to say. She was sort of frozen in her fears and her guilt, and she made up some excuse about having to go do some shopping so that she could leave the house as soon as possible. And as she was leaving, her husband reported, oh, they said it was a Rosita Gomez that had been hit, and she'd been taken to the doctor's hospital. Well, with that news on her mind, she went out to the car and sure enough looked at the car, and there was a little bit of a dent and a scrape on the back of the car, but nothing really dramatic. One might not even notice it at first glance. Well, she immediately went to the hospital and asked for Rosita Gomez. And when she was taken up to the room, to her surprise, she met Gloria, who was there. And June says, Gloria, what are you here for? She says, oh, it's Rosita. You know, the woman that helped with our party last night. She was walking home on the side of the road, and it was a hit and run. And now June is overwhelmed, but doesn't know what to say. And Gloria says, well, let's not talk in here. Let's let Gloria recuperate. And the two of them stepped out into the hall. And Gloria reported that Rosita was going to be okay. Perhaps there was a bruised rib and some scrapes and so on, but she was going to be okay. And Gloria said, I just feel so guilty that I let her walk home in the dark. And June, of course, is feeling the guilt about that. But before she could say anything to Gloria, Gloria says, I know what we need to do. We 6 women, let's raise some money and help. I don't know how much your husband makes. I don't know anything about their family. But at least we can get some money together to help with the expenses. And so they agreed. Well, the doctors and the nurses were busy with Rosita, so the 2 of them left, and June is promising herself, I'll be back. Well, by the time she gets back home, news is beginning to change again. There's more. Apparently, they have now a person of interest and a vehicle, and June now is really worried. Well, as each day went on, she was anticipating that there would be a knock at the door. She went to the hospital, and indeed Rosita was recovering and was going to be home, and it was the Sunday after Christmas Day that there was a knock at the door. And when June opened the door, it was Carlos, Rosita's husband. And she thought to herself, well, I know why he's here. He's found out it was me, and he's probably come and asking for more money. But as she welcomed Carlos into the front room, Carlos was smiling and happy and said, oh, I need to thank you. You and your friends have raised $8,000, and that's just going to be so helpful at the hospital. Rosita's home now, and she's going to be doing well. And we want you 6 women to come over to our house for a Christmas celebration. June doesn't know what to do. She's swallowing that guilt and fear that he doesn't know, and she accepts, and they set the date, and he says, you have to come on January 6th, because that's the big celebration of Christmas. You know, for Mexico, where we are, Christmas really gets going with the celebration of the kings, and sometimes it goes all the way to Lent. You have to come and be with us. And so she agreed. And sure enough, when January 6th came, the 6 women were there, and Carlos and Rosita put on a Christmas meal that was wonderful. They met their kids, and they were having a wonderful time. And finally, Gloria, in tears, says, Carlos, I'm feeling so guilty. I just got to tell you, I'm so sorry that I let her walk home. And Carlos says, no, it was my fault. I was supposed to pick her up, and I was late. It's not your fault. And then June stepped forward, and June, too tearful, says, I get to tell you, I didn't see her. And Carlos says, well, of course you couldn't have seen her. She was lying in the ditch there in the darkness. You couldn't have seen her. And June says, no, I mean, I didn't see her. And Rosita spoke up and said, oh, it was just there. I was only there a few minutes. A man walking his dog came and called 911, and I immediately reported about the pickup and the young man who hit me. And June goes, the young man in the pickup. Oh, yes, they've already arrested him, and I now have gotten word that his insurance is going to be taking care of everything. We just wanted you women to come over and celebrate with us all of the good news. And Gloria and June are swallowing and tucking away all of the guilts and fears that they had before. But perhaps there was some new internal resolutions for the new year being made. Not so much drinking and partying. No texting while driving, and get to know your neighbors.
Right. Thump. That's a good story.
Thump.
That's a good story. Larry, thank you so much for coming by on Christmas Day and sharing 8 to 10 minutes of your day with us and our listeners. I wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas, and all of our listeners and radio friends on KBIA, thank you for sharing time with us today, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Brownstory.com, right?
That'll work.
Okay, Merry Christmas.